Hey Steve, this is Rob Fleming here. We're looking at your latest set of drawings and images that you have, and I kind of like this gray motif you got going here. I like seeing the project in context. Seems to me that it'd be great to see something at the scale where you can see the bridge, just because that's such an important part of what you're doing. So there may be even a smaller version of this as you get into your eco district or district scale drawing, so you can begin to show some of the relationships. I think this would be one of the big ones right there, which I know you're working on, which is great. Um, and then I think that that's pretty helpful. I see what you're doing with the red here. You're trying to tie in all the architectural motifs and see how it all links together. So we'll talk about that as we go through. One of the things I'm interested in is the stormwater collection, which you've started to really get into, I see, by your other drawings. So I'll try to talk about that also. In fact, here's the one. Like, I think this is really cool what you're doing here, but I don't know if it is real, meaning that you've superimposed a naturalistic form on top of this, and I wonder if that's going to be the right solution or the best solution. I'd like to propose something to you where you take this element here and move it down here. So perhaps there is a series of rain gardens that happen here and there that then all kind of end up down into this guy down here. And then the rain garden activity here is done more in this more architectural way. Maybe there's a boulder and some naturalistic, which I saw you put one there, which is kind of interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm just wondering if rainwater isn't, and I have to look at your roofs again. You have roofs going in different ways. Some of the rainwater wants to come this way. One of the things that I was interested in is looking at your towers is doing more than just, well, they're already doing a couple things, but having them do even more things. I'm wondering if, these are your gutters, and I'm wondering if the towers themselves are the place where the water ends up coming out. Maybe, I don't know. But in any case, I see this side as the natural side of your project, and I see this as the urban. So the things that you've done here, for example, make a lot of sense to me. These are more architectural solutions to nature in a box, so to speak. And I think that you'll see, I think that in that way, having a distinction between urban and natural could help you make some decisions about how you want to organize things. I mean, I do like the spirit of what you have here in red. I like the way you drew it. I'm not sure architecturally it plays out the way you would hope it would play, but maybe you would know something that I don't know in relation to that. So let's see, a lot of other really good things happening here. I'll talk about this guy. And the boulder, I do like the idea of the boulder. And I'm wondering if the naturalistic part actually starts up here with a boulder, and the boulder signifies this kind of action coming down this way. And then this becomes a much more architectural signage element. Maybe this is the sign for the school. So as you come up from there, you read that, and this is a sign for this side of the school that could have a lot of trees. The other thing I do want to get you to start thinking about is the fence. I see you have the property line. At some point there is a line at which there's a fence around this whole project from a security point of view, and I think it sorts of grounds the project a little bit. And I also know that you're eventually going to have a lot of naturalistic edging here, I believe, or maybe not. Don't remember what you had proposed there, but this edge along with this pond here, I'm sorry, not pond, wetland area, and that's my fault for keep calling it a pond, but I'm wondering, does this get pretty grown in here and pretty dense, and the fence maybe you don't even see. So in a way, I wonder then, if I'm looking at people are walking down this way, maybe this wetland area finds its way here and ends, I don't know, it's kind of high, but maybe there's something going on here. Or maybe these guys, which you have here, reappear here, and then there's a connection here. These are tricky things to do. I'm not implying at all that this is easy to do. One of the other things that I think we talked about was bringing these steps over. And then I really thought, I really liked the perspective you showed me looking from here out. It let me know that this railing maybe wants to be steps and much more open into the space so that kids can sit here, they can sit here. And even along here there might be something built in architecturally where people can begin to sit. Or this becomes, I forget what you had as the stage, I think it was that, but I'm wondering if there's more informality. So you have steps You have steps here and then they reappear here. Maybe they wrap around, they reappear here, and then they do what you have here. So it's really this urban idea. I see you have gray here. I guess eventually, if you get lucky enough, you'll be able to actually put a paving pattern in here, or not, to give it a little bit of sense of that urbanness to it. And and just getting back to the tower, so what if rainwater collected, what if gutters went this way when the roofs made sense, and that became a downspout or some sort of celebration of water as it comes down from these towers. You don't have a tower here. I don't know if this guy could act as a tower. You got a lot of towers, so it's kind of hard for me to remember what. This is certainly one. What's what? So, and I think this is the fence line here. I really do. So the fence itself has some opportunities there. And I'm going to wait and get back to your roofs. I do see some of the roof lines that you have here, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I'll look at those more in perspective. Otherwise, the floors look great. I don't think there's any need to look at the floor plans anymore. So I'm going to skip past this one for a minute and this one and look at some of these. First, I want to go to this one. So I see the boulder, and we talked a little bit about the boulder and maybe thinking about relocating the side of that. Maybe the boulder is actually over here, and maybe this is the beginning of the stormwater, more naturalistic, organic, biomimetic activity, and maybe this is a little bit more architectural over here. The one thing I do notice is, and it was a little bit of, I think that you put a lot of architecture in here, and a lot of thought into this, and I'm wondering, are you getting the bang for your buck there in terms of the time, to build it, the money to build it, and wondering if a simpler sort of horizontal plane, not unlike this one right here. This is a very simple plane that you've got there. I got to change my color. And I'm just wondering if after you spend all that time, so I really want to be sensitive to the fact that you spent a lot of time on it. So I think it looks cool and has a lot of potential as a piece of architecture. But there's also a part of me that just says, that is a really simple architectural idea that could begin to wrap and just create a threshold across a certain point where you make that transition, and there's also probably a gate. I still think you might have to have a gate here. And so that then is sort of more in keeping with what these guys are. These are a little bit sloped. I think that's a little bit sloped. And I believe you had one here. So another horizontal plane there with a gate under it that could be locked, I think is really maybe enough for this project. But your project, and you have to decide how you want to do it. This is the reason I wanted to get to this drawing. So this is pretty much a flat roof, so you can control where the stormwater comes down. And I did think that you had some opportunities to do some more elements here, and then on this side you had some opportunities to do some elements for stormwater that could be more architectural and less organic, whereas this side, this boulder, could signal a series of another, and then maybe there's, maybe this is where the water comes down at these points, and maybe there's no other element, but there could be an edge. There could be sort of a naturalistic edge along here that is followed for all the stormwater. This roof can split. You can do half the water here and half the water here, and then this then goes down to this element here, which would be nice to be seen across here. And if you watch the lecture from today, you'll get a better sense of what those rain gardens could look like. So again, these towers having the potential to be markers in the landscape. They're doing some vertical movement of air, but they could also be designed to, maybe the water is collected right down the face. I don't know what's wrong with this. Excuse me. Let me go on to the next one and come back. So maybe the water is collected right down on the face of this. Maybe there's an element that an architectural element that does that. I don't know. Maybe this is a butterfly roof. It's kind of late to be making changes. At this point, you're probably working on your calculations and your independent study project, so I probably wouldn't worry about that too much. And I do understand that railing is the same as that railing. I do like the idea of this being an open stair, more of a forum, so that it's kind of inviting you up instead of sort of this. And then I would have a railing on this side like you have it, because you have a pretty significant level change there. And so you do have the opportunity to split the water. I guess a lot of your water wants to go this way because you want to get it down into here for your cisterning. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And let me go back now. So yeah, just getting back to this then. I mean, I'm just wondering if something a little bit more straightforward would do the trick for you, and maybe you won't have to be so worried about that, and maybe it kind of hangs out. But I do think you also need the sense of a threshold here for security. Actually, now I kind of like the boulder there, but hey, you tried it out, which is what you're supposed to do as a student. And I do think you might have some sort of very thinly veiled fence that can open and close, and I'm not sure if that spins like this in plan, or maybe it folds up, and maybe it folds up and goes underneath a brow that sort of links across here and creates a horizontal band across that. The other thing is the trees and vegetation. Because you've got a relatively blank facade, you've got the opportunity to begin to really take this boulder idea and begin to bring in a lot of vegetation, and all of a sudden this side begins to speak about the natural environment and what happens as you move around that way. If I go back to the plan for a minute, we were talking about the fence. So we have the fence I have the fence ending here, and I guess you could walk around here. I guess you really don't want people to walk around here, so maybe they see this element, and then after they come in the building, they come back out, they discover that element as being something continuous. And then the other thing, I see what you're doing. You're exploring a vocabulary, but I mean, you have a vocabulary that's pretty clean and simple, and then this is sort of the introduction of a new vocabulary architecturally. I think it is, although the angle is similar to that. It's a different kind of expression. I do want to be sensitive to the fact you spend a lot of time on that, but right now I would say that this is not in harmony with the rest of what you're doing in the building. I think it's pretty cool that you really can see that bridge back there. So if you need me to go down and take a picture from that angle, I could take a picture from that angle, and then you could actually splice that in if you wanted to. Just let me know what you want to do there. And then just getting back into this courtyard, which is really coming along pretty well. It seems to me that these steps want to kind of continue there, and I think we talked about this before. They might even want to wrap around and come around to create a sense of space. Maybe not. And you got your planter in here. And then I was talking maybe the water's going to come down to here and then maybe down, and so it becomes clear. Or maybe there's a hole in this, and geez, stupid pen's not working very well today. So maybe there's a hole here, and maybe there's a rain. You know what a rain chain is. So what happens is the water kind of comes off the roof, goes through this hole, and kind of slowly trickles down this series of metal objects, and then maybe it hits a boulder. In this case, the boulders and all nature is enclosed within these planters, so it's a different kind of experience. So let's see how that would work. So you've got you could do that. This is a little far away from this, so I don't quite know how that would work, but maybe this can spread up into there, and then you can have another one of these guys coming down into an element, and then that's pretty clearly doing. It looks like you have some space over here, in here. I don't think that might be a planter, so you have opportunities to do this in multiple locations if needed. And these, again, look up rain chain. I just saw a project in Philly where they did it. It's kind of cool. Makes a little bit of a statement about that. And then this is the perspective that made me wonder about the railing, and I like the railing architecturally. It's probably something a little risky for a school. This is a pretty rough and tumble school, but if this just became open, where the steps just kind of went down, those steps came down, those steps came down, you could probably even have another bench along here. All of a sudden the space is getting very activated. And then of course in the paving, and we can go on forever, by the way, developing this architecturally. I don't really think you have a lot of time left to spend on the architecture, depending on what you want to do. But certainly something would happen in the middle here in terms of the paving pattern to highlight the intersections of all these different geometries. You might begin to feel that in the way that the paving pattern is done, but I think that could be pretty exciting. Seems to me this is the kind of space that would have some tables and chairs and people sitting out, and these tables would get moved around depending on what the event was happening here, but certainly the whole school could gather here and either sit on these benches and steps, which makes me wonder, if these are steps too, then here's the head of the school could sit here and address everybody and talk to people. That's what they do now at Miquon. They all kind of sit outside, and so people can be sitting on these steps here. I mean, I think you need to activate the space And I know you spent a lot of time on the form, so you haven't had time to really activate it yet with the things like people and furniture. And as I said before, you could go on forever developing this project, but I think it's also interesting what time of day you took your rendering. It seems to me that you took the rendering at summer, probably June 21st, and at noon is my bet, because you're showing a very high vertical shadow, which is probably not a bad way to approach that. And I think you're implying here that and we could talk live if you like. It looks like you've designed that for the maximum. And so what you'll see in some architectural designs is you'll actually see a little bit of elements here that can be somewhat structural but also somewhat architectural. But that's really something that you'd have to think about. Again, you could go on this forever and ever and ever. Yeah, because I don't know if you need these columns right here. I wonder if it's just these floating planes that kind of, like the other one that you did over, like this one. I guess this is the one over here. Where is that? This guy right here is just a simple floating plane. I wonder if it could be simpler than that. I know you're doing solar, so you do have to kind of watch out for the shadows from this. So this is where I kind of have to take a step back and admit that I'm wrong, because this tower here is going to take away some potential solar. So maybe this is a green roof. This section happens to be a green roof, which is really more symbolic than anything. It seems, oh, you got another one there. I guess that's a green roof too. And we could talk live if you want. But I don't know. I look at this project and I think of it as actually evolving quite nicely and becoming pretty sophisticated, especially this space here. This is a pretty good urban space that you've created. And so I don't know. You sound like you're not too excited about it, but I do get excited about it. I would actually encourage you to think about the AIA coat competition and reorganizing your final presentation along those lines, which I'm happy to help you do. I do like some of the things that are happening here. There's a sense of the village, and this is sort of the bell tower of the village. And one thing I thought of, and again, you don't have to do these things. These are just me reacting to your project. Uh-oh, now it's spinning, so just hold on for 1 second. You don't have to make all of these changes. This is just me reacting to your work as I see it. And I'm just waiting for this to do what it's got to do. It's very annoying. Okay, well, great.